أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. We start in the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful. I will bear witness there is no deity worthy worship except Allah. Praise and glory be to Him. And that Muhammad is a seal of messengers. He was sent as a mercy to all mankind. May peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, his family, his companions, and those who follow this path until the day of judgment. I greet you with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all, dear brothers, dear sisters. Assalamu alaikum, brother Asad Zaman. Inshallah, you are well and healthy. And I think what we call you are in the best state of your iman, in your health and in your wealth as well.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, Dr. Abdul Aziz. Wonderful to be back with you again. Unfortunately, we seem to have missed our last week's session due to perhaps a bit of a misunderstanding. But anyway, we'll make up for it today.
Allah, no problem. Yes.
And alhamdulillah, all is fine.
And this is the A2Z show, which we do. And we talk about issues of the week, and which is always, we are very important to be up to date what are issues of the week, which is pertaining to the community, local news, and national news, European news, and things which I'll talk about them as well. Brother Zaman, I think the Friday pulpit, I went to khutbah today, and the khatib in the Mawlawi mosque, the topic was about keeping our appointments, those people to keep their appointments to the time and their promises as well. Now, I think you have been in which khutbah, which mosque you have been, and what was the topic?
In Altrincham Mosque in the sort of Trafford area. It's most sort of affluent area, I suppose, of Greater Manchester, and it's always good to talk there because you have an educated audience and quite an influential audience in terms of the fact that they're mostly business or professional community that lives over there. So when they call me up, I never say no.
And
so, yes.
Before you start, how was the COVID-19 guidelines observed in the mosque as far as mask, social distancing, and other things? How did you? What's your remark?
As you enter, they will take your temperature. They'll make sure that you have actually registered with to come to the mosque, because obviously there's a restriction on the number of people who can come, and normally it's quite packed. So you have to register. And then, yes, everyone has to have their own mask. As they enter, they take the shoes off and take them with them, put them on the side in a bag. They have their own prayer mats with them. And the sanitizers there for them to sanitize their hands. And they go in the and sit at the designated.
And everybody has his wudu as well. He has done his ablution at home.
Yes, that's right. Yes, the wudu area, as I understand it, is not available.
At what time was the Friday prayer? At what time?
At 1:30.
Is it one or two?
Well, just the one prayer.
Okay.
Yeah. Normally, when I go to the Muslim Youth Foundation, they have like 3 prayers, but
yes, I know.
Here it's just the one prayer.
Okay.
So yes, I mean, I've been going here now every 2-3 weeks, and so I've been following a certain theme, and it's all to do with school and children and what they've been taught at school, and our rights in this new relationship and a health and sex education syllabus that's being introduced, and just making clarifications about what the government is saying and what the schools are doing, and the fact that they're not all the same. And today was a follow-up of that. I was saying, well, look, we understand. I've been through what the schools are doing and what our responsibility is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us what our responsibility is regarding our children when He says, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Oh, you believe, protect yourselves, your children, your families from the fire of hell. So the question was, are we doing all we can as parents to protect our children from that fire of hell? And I explained that, look, the dangers to our children are increasing all the time. First, it was from the society, and perhaps from the fashion industry, and from TV programs and what have you. But now it's directly from the education system, that they are trying to change the moral values of the children that are attending. And last time I went into details about what those laws are, and today I just said, look, our children, there are certain messages that our children are receiving, and what are we doing to reverse those messages which are contrary to Islamic values? So our children are being told, for example, you can be male or female, or you can be non-binary, and you've got another 100 genders to choose from. And then when it comes to sexual or marital relationships, you can have it with anyone, male, male, female, female, male, female, as you please. And then you've got the issue of transsexual. You might be a child, a boy inside a girl's body, or a girl inside a boy's body. And if you want to, switch, then we, the government, will provide you with the puberty blockers and the hormone therapy to help you transition completely. So I said, well, this is the reality of what is actually happening. And of course, the other messages they're receiving is you can follow whatever faith you want, or no faith at all. And of course, the school system generally, or the country generally, the secular liberal establishment, is encouraging everyone towards essentially atheism anyway. And at the same time, our children are being told, don't express any objection to anyone who is different to you. So all of these things, essentially, what we are seeing is the shaitan's influence on society is getting stronger and stronger. That is what we are witnessing right in front of our eyes. And we've known this all along, the influence of the shaitan. It's not something new. That's why in Islam, we are actually told to recite a dua the moment we are with our wives. As Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, that the Prophet ﷺ said, if any one of you intends to go to his wife, you should say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, O Allah, protect us against the shaitan and keep away the shaitan from that which you bestow upon us. And the Prophet ﷺ said, if it is destined that you should have a child, then the shaitan will not harm him or her, inshallah. So we know the influence of the shaitan on the individual and of course on society, and we are given this very special dua at the time of being with our wives to make this dua at such a, it's a very intimate time, and dua is the last thing on your mind, okay? But at that time, we should not forget Allah, not just think about, what we will get out of this experience, but making sure that, we remember Allah at that intimate time. And of course, as we progress along, even in the womb, the unborn has certain rights. For example, generally speaking, only if the mother's life is in danger can you abort. I said that's in generally speaking. And once they're born, the children have a right to be fed, clothed, protected, given tarbiyah, and of course, Islamic education to protect their deen. Now, the question is, we need to ask ourselves, in this sea of kufr, as a society moves further and further away from Allah, are we doing all we can to protect the deen of our children and to give them the tarbiyah that is their right, that is their haqq? Now, the reality is, too many of us, we work maximum hours. All the hours that Allah gives us, we use them in order to make money. And we give our children the minimum amount of time, if any at all. And, you know, we tend to justify this in our mind by saying, well, you know, these some people do. I don't want to deprive my children of what I couldn't have as a child. In other words, I want to give my children what I didn't have as a child. So you work and work. But, you know, if both parents are working, you know, and you've got childminders and babysitters and, you know, day nurseries for preschool, etc. If both parents don't spend the quality time educating their children, and the primary educator of children are the parents, not the school. If the father works maximum hours, and in many cases mom as well, she neglects her duty too, then what's going to happen? Our children are going to see dad simply as an ATM machine, as a bank. Whenever I need some money, he's there. And dad is saying, look at the long hours I'm spending, you know, to make sure that you have everything you want. And of course, in many cases, mum is also working a lot of hours. And the result is that we have very, very little time with our children. So why should we be surprised if our children then see us as a bank? Fathers as a bank, mothers as a maid, someone who washes and cleans and feeds them. Unless we are going to develop that relationship with our children from the word go, pretty much from the time that they are born, right up to, you know, the age of, say, 21, at least. If we're not creating that bond between us and our children, then how can we expect them to respect us? You see, we are in this, you know, rather crazy mentality. I say crazy because it's not rational. We think that because we're spending so much time trying to fulfill the needs of our children by working all these long hours, our children are going to respect us for this. And that's not how it works. If you tell them you're a bank, they'll treat you like a bank. If mum, all she does is cook and clean and wash and feed them and what have you, that they will see just her simply as a maid. The respect comes with bonding, by developing a strong relationship, by giving them quality time, every day spending some time with them. Not for them to be on the internet, not for them to be playing on, you know, PlayStation and Xbox. It's for you and them to switch your mobiles off, put them away, put the television away, and spend some time as a family. Every day, at least maybe half an hour, 1 hour, you have that contact time. You discuss things. You ask them how, you know, how's the school been? What did you learn in this lesson or that lesson, etc. Take an interest in them. Show them you love them. Develop that love and affection between them. Only when you are developing, you have a strong developed relationship, then expect them to listen to you. Expect them to be to listen to your advice, because at the moment, you know as well as I do, when parents talk, children start yawning. They start, oh yeah, another lecture, mom, another lecture, dad, in one ear, out the other. Why? Because that respect isn't there. This is my mother talking. This is my father talking. I must listen to what they have to say. No, that's not the attitude, because the love and the respect and the affection is not there. Because you have not generated it, you've not created it, you've not brought about the conditions for there to be a development of respect in their hearts for you. If all we are doing is just earning to give them a good life, great. But when they get to 14, 15, and you tell them, oh, son, this is not right. And so, who are you? Who are you to tell me? And when he says, who are you? Then you realize, oh my God, I don't have that relationship with my child as I thought I had. My child doesn't respect me the way I was hoping my child would respect me. And that's when we get the wake-up call. But by that time, if our child has gone off track, it's very, very difficult at the age of 14, 15, then to bring them back on track. That is a danger that that too many of us have fallen into. That's why our children don't respect us. They use language which is appalling. They have an attitude towards us as if, you know, we're just somebody off the street, not their mother or their father. And this is a major problem. So what we need to do is, from the word go, we need to develop that bond between us and our children. We need to speak to them regularly, give them that quality time, answer their questions, ask them questions, ask them about their lives, about their, you know, if everything is okay. Are they being bullied, for example, in school? How are the teachers treating them? Is there any kind of racism there, Islamophobia there? Show you care about them. Show that you are interested in their lives. Show them that they can talk about any topic at all with you. They're not afraid or ashamed to speak about any topic. When they have a problem, you should be the first point of call, not their friend who could easily misguide them. This is where we have, in pretty much, you know, most households, we have this serious problem. And that the solution to that is simply we cut down our work hours and we spend more time with our children. Reduce the babysitter, reduce the childminders. No, you should be your child's childminder. You should be the babysitter. You should be the one, because whoever the babysitter is, whoever the childminder is, whoever the nursery teacher is, that child is creating a relationship with them because they're the ones who are looking after them. They're the ones who are playing with them. And where's mom and dad? Busy working. That bonding, that relationship is not being developed with whom it should be developed.
Therefore, you are saying that family planning. It's why I am doing this course, pre-marriage courses, family planning, and deciding about the marriage first with a right wife, a right husband with a characteristic, as you said, and then having to have children. You have to plan your family in such a way that you have that quality time, and because they are your responsibility to look after them. Therefore, you need to be sure that those children are brought up according to what you believe in, isn't it? As a parent, you are the rightful guardian of your children. As the Prophet said.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say exactly that. As the Prophet ﷺ said, you are the shepherd, your children are your flock. How does a shepherd look after his flock? Constantly, he is concerned about any danger coming to his flock from the outside, from anywhere, looking after the health of his flock and protecting his flock from outside dangers. How much time are we spending with our children that we are seeing them as our flock and are doing all we can to protect them from the harms and the harams which exist within society? That is a question every mother and every father needs to ask themselves, because the result of neglect is that they simply develop the ideas of the society. And the society, as I said right at the beginning, is now heavily influenced by the shaitan. And the consequence of that is what? They're coming home and saying, Mom, I'm gay. Mom, I'm a lesbian. Mom, I'm bisexual, or I've decided to become an atheist, or I'm an agnostic. And all the things that I mentioned at the beginning about gender and transsexuals and all the rest of it. This is what's happening in society, and that's what's happening with our children as well. And it's hardly surprising that many of them, out of ignorance and the bad example of their parents, are now leaving the deen. We need to stop the rot. We need to repair the damage that we are guilty of having inflicted on our children by neglecting them. We need to make sure that we rectify that situation. We cut down our work time, those who are working long hours, we cut down our work time. Okay, it may well be that we reduce, it'll reduce the income. But so long as we're paying our bills, which should not be excessive, just normal bills, etc., why should we be working so many extra hours at the expense of neglecting our children? Our children come first. Our children don't want Xboxes and PlayStations, they want our quality time. And we starve them of that quality time at our own risk and at our own detriment. That is really where we're going, and that's why we're losing so many children. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, protect our children from the clutches of the shaitan and help us to carry out our responsibility as responsible Muslim parents.
And do you think, because I'm reading here about sex education after marriage, if you tell kids about sex, they will do it. If you tell them about VD, they will go out and get it. Incredible as may seem, most opposition to sex education are based on the assumption that knowledge is harmful. But research in this area reveals that ignorance and unresolved curiosity, not knowledge, are harmful. Our failure to tell children what they want and need to know is one reason we have the highest rate of out of wedlock teen pregnancy and abortion of any highly developed country in the world. What kids needs to know, and this is a variable. Now, okay, you spoke about the parents. If they don't have the knowledge, they cannot give it. Now, let's speak about institutions like mosques, schools, organizations. What is their roles about that? How they can, like we do, for example, Quran memorization in mosques. If we don't have Muslim schools who can hopefully, inshallah, teach properly the knowledge about relationships, everything, and what is a concept of parent, what is concept of family, and all concepts, how to do relationships and everything. As I said, I'm doing this pre-marriage course now, and I'm getting on with it as well as an important thing. But if the parents themselves, they don't have that knowledge, what are the responsibility of mosques? And you are speaking in the Friday prayer, Friday sermon about this issue. How many khatibs or those who preach give this kind of topic in their Friday prayer in our 2,000 mosques or so?
Sadly, not enough. Sadly, very few will even touch this topic. Last time I was talking about this RSE syllabus and what have you in one of these mosques. A number of people, they came up to me and said, "You're very brave talking about this topic. Thank you for talking about it, but you're very brave to do it." And I was shocked by that remark. I wasn't chuffed by it. I was shocked by it, because this is something that why should it take someone to be brave to talk about a topic that is so important?
Because it's sometimes about shame and all these kind of things.
And I've said it myself in khutbahs. It's not a subject I like to talk about, because we are talking about, gays and lesbians and bisexual, these are not words I like to talk about or mention, especially from the minbar, but we are having to talk about them because they're affecting our households. And unless we talk about them, the famous saying, the first step towards solving a problem is by acknowledging you have a problem.
Yes.
So if you don't even acknowledge you've got the problem, you are not going to do anything about it to bring about a remedy for that issue. So let's talk about it, and then let's talk about the solution as well. But let's be very clear here.
And the other thing as well, I think, and you are right as well, and the biggest have a problem now is, as you said it, is the role of the mother in upbringing children. And because the mother is very close to the children as well, emotionally, physically, and everything. And of course, if the mother herself is not knowledgeable, this is, I'm just a quote here, said, blessed are the women of the helpers, you Ansar, the Ansar, the helpers in Medina. Their modesty did not stand in the way of their seeking knowledge about their religion. Saying the Prophet ﷺ, this is the Prophet ﷺ hadith, because they were very keen to know every details how to conduct themselves and how their children conduct themselves, and there is no bashfulness in religion. Ask about your religion until people say you are mad. And the Salman al-Farisi, the Salman the Persian, may Allah be pleased with him, when he was speaking to somebody, and that person said, oh, in your religion you have answers to all questions? Yeah. He said, we have answers to all questions. Even when you go to the toilet, you relieve yourself, we tell you how to clean yourself. And there is no bashfulness, let alone about relationships and sex and marriages and all this kind of thing. It is a must. And I believe now these pre-marriage courses should be introduced rightly in the secondary school from 12 to 16 years old, when by the age of 18 years old, if a man, a young boy, a young girl wants to get married and they have the means and they are able to look after each other and everything, why not give them that knowledge in the school setting? Yeah. And then what you have left is the parents to give a role model, an example to their children, how to conduct themselves in everything, as far as watching, like a YouTube without child protection. There is how I have in my website as well, I put how to protect your children from YouTube, material which is improper for kids. They have put now by law, they have to protect the kids, but you have to put a restriction yourself. And they give them a test, about maths test, 4 times 9. If you don't know what is the result is 36, you are a kid. Therefore, they give a test to watch any material. Now, if you go to YouTube, and I will give you the link, inshallah, maybe you speak about it. YouTube has put a policy how to protect. It's not like our video here, this one. When I publicize it in my YouTube, I put not suitable for kids. I put it in my YouTube, but not everybody do that. You go to YouTube and somebody will show children screaming while they have a vaccination, something like they put in earrings. They show everything just to attract attention and attract people to viewers. And then you have publicizing people, they publicize through their YouTube, they publicize their products. So therefore,
on that point, you see, one of the definitions of taqwa, you see, you're talking about an issue that is very much to do, connected with an essential part of our faith. Ubay bin Ka'b, radiallahu anhu, a highly knowledgeable person, acknowledged scholar at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. During the Khilafah of Umar Farooq, radiallahu anhu, Umar Farooq asked him, Ubay, what is taqwa? He said, "O Amir al-Mu'mineen, have you ever walked through a field of thorns?" He said, "Yes, I have." He says, "How did you respond?" "Well, I lifted up my garments and I treaded very carefully." He said, "That is taqwa." So what is he saying here? Number one, and this is, you're talking about YouTube and making sure that we protect our children as much as we can. Number one, we can get from this narration that you are conscious of your environment. You are conscious of all the good, but also especially the bad that exists within the environment, the harm and the haram. Secondly, that you take maximum precautions to protect yourself from that harm and haram. That is essentially what you're saying and what we need to be doing when it comes to our children. Let's examine what the harms are, whether it's internet chat rooms, whether it's even cartoons have got haram, wrong stuff in them nowadays. Whether it's from their friends, whether it's from part of the school syllabus, whether it's from anything that they are influenced by. A lot of it is now internet based, whether it's YouTube or anything else, right? So we need to make sure we are very conversant or familiar with how to trigger or put in those safeguards against content that we know to be objectionable, haram, whether it's nudity, whether it's violence and all the rest of it. And of course, we need to monitor them. We need to help them understand what is right and what is wrong. Because we can't be there all the time. And even these filters, which are there to filter out harmful content, there are always ways around them.
Yes.
So yes, we do all we can to protect our children. But the best protection is correct tarbiyah from an early age to help them differentiate between right and wrong, halal and haram. Because when that little policeman in their head is there telling them this is okay and this is not okay, we don't need to be there to make sure that they're not doing that wrong. Because we cannot monitor them all the time. It's just not possible.
Yes,
it's impossible.
And
so,
I just, this maybe we'll finish with that, inshallah, because we have other things to say. Although, the Quran has placed so much emphasis on acquiring knowledge, and in the days of Prophet Muhammad, Muslims, men and women, were never too shy to ask him, including those related to private affairs, such as sexual life. For Muslim parents of today, sex is a dirty word, between inverted commas. They feel uncomfortable in discussing sex education with their children, but do not mind the same, but do not mind the same being taught at their children's school by secular or non-Muslim teachers, or even the opposite sex, by their peers. By their peers. Yes, by their either.
No, absolutely, I agree with every word.
And by the peers of either sex, and by the media and television. An average child. I give you statistic. Let me finish this. Let me finish this.
Okay.
An average child is exposed to 9,000 sexual scenes per year. These parents should know that sex is not always a dirty word. It's an important aspect of our life. Allah, God Almighty, who cares for all the aspects of our life and not just the way of worshiping Him, discusses reproduction, creation, family life, menstruation, and even ejaculation in the Quran. Prophet Muhammad, who was sent to us as an example, discussed many aspects of sexual life, including sexual position with his companion. So therefore, this is it.
So,
Knowledge is the best thing. That's our protection.
This is why the Prophet ﷺ said, طَلَبَ عِلْمٌ فَرِيدَةٌ عَلَى مُسْلِمٍ وَمُسْلِمَةٍ. It is absolutely compulsory for every Muslim man and every Muslim woman to acquire knowledge. So, and of course, knowledge is every type of knowledge that benefits us. And the allowable, the halal and the haram within the bedroom, within, you know, in terms of your own personal life, of course, this knowledge is immensely important. And they cannot be, of course, it depends on who. I always say, when it comes to sexual matters and growing up and what have you, it's always best for a father to educate his son and for a mother to educate her daughter. That is always the best thing, because
or a female teacher to educate a female student, or a male teacher to educate
exactly.
a male student. Yes.
But also, we have to also remember that when it comes to teaching, who is the teacher? What are the values of the teacher?
Yes.
If the values of the teacher are secular liberal values, those are the values that they'll be teaching the children. That is why we have such a messed up society.
Education system.
The whole secular liberalism doesn't have any moral values. It's anything goes. Whatever the parliament has allowed, they will say it's okay in the classroom. And whatever parliament has not allowed, they will probably say that this is wrong. But only until parliament passes a law.
Okay.
20 years ago. Yeah, so we'll finish on this.
Yes, and I think I finished with that one. The main reason, as you spoke about it being within the risk, the main reason Muslim parents do not or cannot discuss sex education with their children is because of their cultural upbringing, not their religious training. They are often brought up in a state of ignorance in regard to sex issues. As a result, they may not be comfortable with their own sexuality or its expression. They leave Islamic education to Islamic Sunday school, and you know this, supplementary schools. Supplementary schools on Saturday, Sunday. And with all respect to them, they are not very efficient, because most of them, they bring curriculums from Muslim countries, countries. Of course, they have some strength, like Arabic, Quran, and some other things, but they have some weaknesses as well. And of course, and sex education to American public schools and the media. This is actually from America, this research. So therefore, the idea to speak comprehensively is to have an education system which is comprehensive, and it takes this human, that one, and put him in that state of as a servant to Almighty Allah and the Prophet Subhanahu wa Taala. And we are going to the birth of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam on the 29th of October this year coming up. Allah has sent us as a mercy to all mankind. He has sent us the Prophet as a role model. And Aisha radiallahu anha, she was 12 years old when she consumed her marriage or so. And when she described the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, she described as a walking Quran. And therefore, by not looking just the Prophet ﷺ picking and choosing about a beard, or letting your trousers up, you know, all this kind of thing. But what about other things? The Prophet ﷺ was a father, was everything, a leader, was an educator, and all the prophets were teachers before anything. And I believe that what you have put at the last point, the quality of teachers and the curriculum can support the parent in bringing children, but they cannot give everything because the parent have a role to play, and they have to do it, and they have to look after and what we call fulfill their responsibility by upbringing their children, because the schools, we have said, it's about 25% support to the parent, but 75% it should be to the parents to have an influence on their children. And at the end of the day, legally, up to the age of 18, the parents are legally responsible to on their children and what they do.
I think, isn't it up to 16 rather than 18? And 16 is your age of consent.
Yes, but I think I always add 2 years to 18, because we say, Asad saying that play them for 7 years and educate them for 7 years and befriend them with 7 years, and then
up to 21,
leave them to their own.
Yes, up to 21, certainly. Anyway,
right. Okay, inshallah, we stop. I think this, we have to move to another. I think we should have a break now, I think, to play Nasheed or something like this. I'm trying.
Radio, we'll do that.
I'm trying to, I think, editing and get, because they put more, I think, here, and I want to see what kind of more again, but I think you can disconnect an audio here. We don't want to disconnect. Right, let's move on, inshallah. You said you want to, we spoke about it. Now, there is a petition now done by not Muslims, parents, and the petition is about the right of parents to withdraw their children from sex education in a secondary school. In secondary school. And of course, they are putting it now, and almost update that I have sent you, I think, this petition as well, is the Alliance of Parents who are against the teaching of sex and relationships, education, everything. Therefore, we have to build alliances with other believers, Muslims and Jews and Christian, and even there are some decent, even secular, and they don't want this LGBT to be taught to their children as well, because as we said, 2% of the society may have a problem, but 98% they don't have. And I said within special education need, we can deal with the 2%, but we cannot bring a law and then we start educating everybody, like everybody having this issue with themselves. Therefore, that petition, I believe, I will look at it now, has at the last update 56,000. They have to reach more than 100,000 to discuss these to the parliament, and maybe they can reverse and give the right of withdrawal of the parents from sex education, especially in secondary school.
Even now, although sex and relationship and health education and sex education are all compulsory in secondary schools, parents still, you see, that there are certain rights that parents have.
Listen,
which are
just
already...
let me I'll leave you speak. Just carry on. I just stop the video because I'm doing something. Go on.
Okay. Already, we have rights that most parents are not aware of. Number one, even in secondary schools, you can request for your child to be withdrawn, and it would be useful for the government to tell parents on what basis a head teacher can refuse that request, because at the moment it's not very clear at all. I mean, can a head teacher simply say, no, I don't think that it would be wise to let Johnny not be part of the sex education class. So, and secondly, parents, even in secondary schools, they need to endorse the contents of the relationship and sex education syllabus. So teachers have to consult the parents, show the parents all the material, whether it's audio, video, written, that they will be exposing their children to. So those rights are already there. We just need to make sure that we are actually implementing them and making it clear to schools that we do know that we have these rights, because schools who just want to go ahead and teach whatever they want to, which is basically the LGBT agenda, which is not in our interest, because the LGBT agenda, certainly from some of the material I've read, is to destroy the idea of heteronormativity and to normalize heteronormativity, to make that, basically impose that through one means or another. And of course, those LGBT teachers, they will certainly be pushing that, and other teachers who may not be LGBT but have sympathies for them, they will be promoting material which would be going against what the government has said to them. And we discussed this previously as to
Yes.
what the government is saying and what the people are actually, what the teachers are actually teaching. So yes, it would be helpful if there was, essentially the only way they can withdraw is, like in primary schools, sex education is no longer compulsory in secondary schools. At the moment it is, but if it became optional, then you would have, a parent would have an automatic right to withdraw, as they can withdraw their children from sex education classes at primary level.
Okay, and you know that when you said about, because you know the idea when a letter should be sent or email from the school when they put the policies about sex and relationship education to the parents, the problem is they don't give them the right of withdrawal. They don't give them that option, because if 98% of the children, the parents of the children say, we want our children to be withdrawn from sex education, therefore it becomes the reverse. And I believe it should be, the school should do that, and all the policies should include the right of withdrawal. Therefore, yes, I want my child to be taught sex education, and or no, say this, and then the school, based on the results, how many people want to withdraw, they can decide about making, you know, if it's just 2% of the total students, parents are with the teaching about relationship and LGBT and everything, normally they should identify those children who are, I know circumstances, because the children are innocent when they are born, and this is very important there. So therefore, if the children are born in this awkward situation, they have two parents male or two parents female, then for that they have to be treated, especially them, with all kinds from Islamic point of view. Whatever happened, that homosexuality is not new. It's from Qawm Lot, as we say, in the nation of Lot has been there. Therefore, we have no problem with that, and they should be dealt with sensitively within the school for special education need, and leave the hate. And I give you this. I told you about this petition was submitted during the 2019 conservative government. Petition say, give parents the right to opt their child out of relationships and sex education. We believe it is the parents' fundamental right to teach their children relationship and sex education topics, or to at least decide who teaches them and when and how they are taught. We want the right to opt out children out of the relationship and sex education when it comes mandatory in September 2020. We have grave concern. We have a grave concern about the physical, psychological, and spiritual implications of teaching children about certain sexual and relationship concepts proposed in relationship and sex education, RSE, and believe that they have no place within a mandatory school curriculum. We believe the above factors have not been given enough consideration, and that many of the RSE resources being produced by lobby groups and external organizations will actually cause more harm than good, particularly when child development and psychological factors are considered. The petition is closed because it has, the petition they ran for 6 months. Alhamdulillah, they reached 118,050 signatures. Therefore, the government has to debate this. Yeah. And therefore, what happened? The parliament debated this topic on the 25th of February 2019. The government responded on the 9th of January 2019. As primary educators, parents must be consulted on their school's curriculum for relationships and sex education, and may request their child's withdrawal from sex education. Therefore, this is what the parents have said, and inshallah I will send you the link for your own information. Okay.
Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. I think we finished, alhamdulillah, this very topic as well. But unfortunately, this COVID-19 conditions has made it very difficult for many schools. They don't have policies up to now. You know that? It's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The COVID-19 pandemic and its spreading has stopped many schools to put their policies and put everything. But
that's right. And that's why the government has said they can postpone them until next year. And
in this here, it gives you a whole letter and everything detailed. I will send it to you because on this topic, I hope, inshallah, you can deal with it as well through other pulpit of Friday pulpit, Member al-Jumu'ah, in other mosques. Unfortunately, I wish that all mosques in or multi-faith centers in university should open like they have. And of course, they have opened pubs, a restaurant, everything. Why the university? Of course, because the pandemic has became worse because students are and we expected that with the second wave in Manchester, we are the highest in UK now, about 500 more in 100,000. And of course, for socializing, that creates a problem. The MMU have 1,700 isolated students now. In I think Newcastle upon Tyne, somebody said same member was isolated, and there are 3 deaths of students who died from COVID-19 as well. And we spoke about this, that there is a conception within the youngsters that we are very strong, our immune system is very strong, we are not affected by it, but it is not. This COVID-19
generally is true. No, they are right. And that's why they're so irresponsible. It's because they feel, we can party, we can forget about this social distancing, forget about all these sanitizers and stuff, because either we'll, and it's true that 70% of people who've got the virus have no symptoms. They exhibit no symptoms. 70%. You might have it, I might have it, and we have no symptoms. Only when you go for a test, and then the test may well come up positive, even though you have no symptoms. So this is a problem that with the young people especially, is that they feel that this virus is not going to affect them. So why should they deprive themselves of their normal culture of partying and socializing and drinking and going to the pub or nightclubs or whatever, and sometimes even having parties outside. So that is a major issue. It's a major source of spreading the virus. Also, of course, as I said, you go to a pub, you have a bit to drink, you're not going to be thinking about social distancing when you're not in full control of your mind. So that's why pubs are super spreaders. University students are super spreaders because of their partying and stuff. And generally, whatever situation, people are getting together and they're being irresponsible as well, then inevitably there will be a spread of the virus in those particular areas or locations. So, and of course, as we said before, the Muslim community, Asians generally, I suppose, but certainly Muslim community is a little more vulnerable because more of us, for a number of reasons, are likely to have catch the virus. Why? In terms of work, probably the majority of Muslim workers are frontline workers. They're taxi drivers, they're bus drivers, they are doctors, nurses, carers. These are all frontline staff, and they're directly dealing with the public, and therefore they are at far greater risk of catching the virus because of that fact. Also, most Muslims live in sort of areas of poverty, which means large families living together, and hence again, parents and grandparents, extended family system. So child comes home, infects everybody. Okay, and everybody means mum and dad and brother and sister and grandmother and grandfather and all the rest of it. So inevitably, there's going to be a higher rate of infection within the Muslim community, unfortunately. But
Okay,
by far the
mashallah.
worst are the students and people who go to pubs and nightclubs.
Yes. And I believe that because of course the university is taking precautions, but they opened their places where they socialize everything, and they haven't opened the mosques for the student. And I believe the mental health of under the COVID-19 condition is worse, and a mosque can the spiritual side, and that worries is almost 50% of the weakness of the immune system. And of course, the spiritual, and if you believe in Allah and that, everything what befall on you wasn't to miss you, the decree and destiny. And Shifa, we take all the precautions, vaccine, prevention is better than cure, putting the masks. And mashallah, I went to the mosque, our mosque, and they are doing very well, 2 meters distancing. Masks are compulsory. I saw everybody putting them, although a few people, but now mosques are providing free masks as you come in if you don't have one. And of course, social distancing. But as far as the university is concerned, because I go and I am not far from the universities and from colleges, one of the risk assessment, I'm a health officer, I'm a health and safety officer as well. Risk and assessment, which I see, is the student not wearing their masks, getting very close to each other, and they eat outside, from the takeaways. And they eat on open air. And if it's open air, contamination and microbes, it's you are welcoming them, isn't it? Because there is no safe.
Open air is safer than being inside, actually, because you've got obviously fresh air and stuff. So in terms from a risk assessment perspective, being indoors is higher risk. You're at a higher risk of catching the virus than if you are outside, and that's why there is less restriction, and the government is less bothered about meeting outside than they are about people meeting inside. Anyhow,
But you have seen some scenes in Liverpool, and some now they are speaking about, you know, consumption of alcohol and all these kind of things make things worse. Do you think that places of consumption of alcohol and everything outside or inside, even at home, some scientists that said if you close the pubs and the restaurant and everything, people start doing parties at their homes, and then the risk is bigger.
well, yes, and of course, with Christmas coming, it's going to be a super spreader, massively spread, where, you know, unless they have some serious rules in place. And of course, the problem is, you see, that even if you have rules in place, a lot of people are simply going to ignore those rules, because when people in power break the rules, the very rules that they are imposing on the rest of society, then the society will look at them and say, well, look, if they're not following the rules, why should we follow the rules? And it becomes that kind of attitude, which unfortunately has affected many, many people. We know that government ministers have broken the rules, government advisors have broken the rules, even those who are advising on this lockdown situation. You know, they have broken the rules apparently, and many of them have resigned as a result of it when they were caught out. So that has an impact on a lot of people, and that in itself will create more issues and problems in terms of the spread of the virus.
And maybe the last question, you know, because even the scientists, they talk about secular liberalism, and science for them is a religion. Therefore, when the scientists in the UK spoke to Boris Johnson and everybody that they should introduce another lockdown, they always, those on power, they look at economy and, you know, all this kind of other factor, everything. And do you think that as far as schools is concerned, I take the case I was listening to in Czechoslovakia, a lot of teachers became sick in a lot of schools. In Germany, it's very, is rising everything. You know, about schools, everything. You're in a private college, of course, you do few people come to your college, and most of it, you do it online.
Well, some of them.
Do you think
Some
school,
students are.
some of them, yes. Yes. But do you think that what is a school should go like the universities now, most of them, they want back online, teaching online, and to reduce the spread of the pandemic as well among students and the whole Manchester City.
Again, it's a case of, you know, what's the best thing to do under the circumstances.
Yes.
And stopping people from meeting each other was clearly going to reduce the spread of the virus. But you're right, at the same time, with children, locking them at home, even if they can go to the garden, if they have a garden and are not stuck on the 10th floor of a flat or something, a lot of them suffer from health problems. You know, children need to see their friends at school and talk to them and their teachers, and a lot of interaction takes place. And you know, studies are, I suppose, now being done as to how damaging it is for a child to be away from school and away from friends, and that social aspect, and how it you know, how limited their knowledge becomes when it is simply online. I was listening to some um, owners of businesses, and they were saying that, you know, it's all very well to say work from home if you can, but the reality is that creative thinking comes from interaction with your fellow colleagues and others who are doing a similar work. And Zoom and these online simply cuts out that direct connection with others, which produces greater creativity and sharing of ideas, and therefore development of new ideas, etc. So it's not ideal, but under the circumstances, it's far, far better than having no education at all for children. Far better.
Mm. Therefore, you suggest that the schools and the universities, I think the universities, because the online is, because they are grown-ups and they can deal with the internet and all this kind of, they have no problem with that. I think the research, those who are doing master degree and PhD, and they need labs, I think they have convened for them to come, but they come in a limited number because to avoid and to keep this social distancing, everything. But the idea in the whole of residences, when you lock up 1,700 students, and I had a report that the food wasn't very good in the whole of residence, and because you know, the student usually they got used to takeaways and all these kind of things, and the idea is, as far as primary and secondary schools and colleges, you think that they should not be going online, but do you think that reducing the number, we have reduced social distancing, I think they are doing it, but do you think that maybe reducing the numbers and see what happens, you know, therefore or increasing testing, but no problem. I have another one about testing, you know, but you have said about university, in the mosque, they put just the temperature, you know, because dry cough, temperature are two of the symptoms of this COVID. But now, as you said, sometimes it's there, but it doesn't show up first, even for 40 days, it doesn't show up this COVID-19 symptoms and the effect of it. Do you think this application which the NHS has introduced is a good idea?
Track and trace, track and trace is an excellent idea if it works, but there's been a failure, and that's a problem. In other countries, it's been successful. Look, the way to control and have a good understanding of the virus is ideally to have everyone tested every couple of weeks.
I lost you there.
I can still see you, but
I lost
frozen.
You there.
Okay, let's see.
Can you hear me? Okay, it's okay. It's all right. It's okay. It's okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, because I took the video myself off. Okay, I can hear you, yes.
Okay, put your video back on. I think we should be fine. I took it off Wi-Fi and put it on my mobile data.
Okay,
I think
go on.
Wi-Fi signal might have been weak.
Okay, yes, okay.
Yeah, so look, in terms of food and what have you, what's happened to the university students is very, very unfair. You know, a lot of these students, they're paying a way above what they can afford to be at university.
Mm.
And as soon as they started, and they're paying a lot of money for their accommodation, they have said, what? You're stuck in your flat and you go online. Well, could they not have done that from home? Could they
Yes.
not have had these Zoom sessions from home and
Yes.
saved
Mm.
the hundreds of pounds a month that they are paying for their accommodation?
All right. Okay.
And their rather not very nice food. I mean, mummy's food would be far, far better than the food they're getting. And a lot of the Muslim children, and there's a lot of Muslim children, boys and girls at university, they are being, as I mentioned last time, I was in the newspaper, that a Muslim girl was being sent, pork and all sorts of stuff. So they're not even taking their faith into consideration and what is allowable and what isn't. And here in Manchester, this is happening. She's stuck in her flat, and she can't go out, and the food is being delivered, and it's haram food that's being delivered. So this is the reality of what's happening. So yes, it's not ideal by any means. I think that they've had a raw deal, the students have, and of course they were paying for lessons which they're not having. And part of the fees obviously would be, imagine you're doing a medical course and there's a huge. What about if you're a foreign student? Imagine that you're a foreign student paying a huge amount of money, say for a medical course. I don't know, it's about £30,000 or something, yeah. And you're stuck in your flat, paying a huge amount of money for your flat, can't even go out, can't use the university equipment, can't use a library, can't use any of the stuff that you've actually paid for, and you're stuck to Zoom or whatever. Very, very unfair, and these students have been ripped off, unfortunately. That's really what it is. I hope that they will be reimbursed by the university, but if the university was to reimburse them, the university will go bust themselves. So
Right.
it's a very, very tricky situation that the
Right.
whole system finds itself.
Therefore, you are saying about economics and finance has an overall play, but in the absence of finding a vaccine, you said prevention is better than cure, mask, social distancing, and washing the hands, I think the most important thing, because somebody sent me a survey on me, asking me about different questions about you have a runny nose, about the flu, you said, because the flu pandemic has come and crept up with COVID-19 again. And one of the questions is how many times you wash your hands. So I said, as Muslims, minimum is almost 15 times, yeah?
Exactly.
for the wudu. And if you add before and after eating and after eating, that's almost, say, about 10 times. Therefore, it's about 25 times there. And going to the toilet, yeah, and going absolutely. Yeah. Therefore, you are almost talking about 30 times a day. And when we go outside and come inside as well, I use soap, and I don't use sanitizer, soap and water as well, 3 times. So therefore, you go about 40, 50 times.
The recommended is about 6 times a day.
6 times a day.
That's recommended by doctors.
How we are going for 50 times?
Well, I think realistically, when I added up the number of times I washed my hands on average, it came to about, normally I do about almost 15 times anyway. But now with these, sanitizers and all the rest of it, it's gone up to probably about at least 20 times, which is 3 times, more than what is recommended. And of course, we would, at the 15 times, we would do that anyway. As you said, for washing before prayer, ablution, twice, before and after food, and of course after the bathroom. And of course, in between, there are many occasions where we get our hands dirty and we go and wash them. And myself, I'm washing the dishes all the time. And of course your hands are getting washed. You wash your hands before you wash the dishes, and so that's another 2 or 3 times just for that. So I've estimated 20-25 times a day my hands are being washed. So yes, and in fact, every time I enter the house, I've got a sanitizer. I use a sanitizer, and then I go and wash my hands because I want to wash the chemicals off the sanitizer chemicals off my hands, because the sanitizer chemicals are not necessarily good for you. There's 70% alcohol at least. So again, add another 4 or 5 times. So we are constantly, look, Islam talks about, cleanliness is, half your iman, or
half of your faith.
Yeah, half your faith. So it's part of our faith to be clean. The problem is within the non-Muslim society. And in particular, perhaps the one that, at university, you may have seen it if you were living in halls of residence, like dormitories. I saw it, when I was either temporarily, I was living in halls of residence in Salford University, and at other times I was visiting friends who were living there, and I noticed that and at school I noticed this as well as university. Most non-Muslim children, white or otherwise, I noticed they would go to the toilet and they would go straight out without washing their hands. And it was so, I just felt disgusted that these children and adults don't bother washing their hands even after they've been to the toilet. So that's the culture that we have here. So it is something that's hyper important to emphasize to the non-Muslim population, and also to Muslims who don't pray, because that's 5 times that they are reducing the number of washes. That, look, hygiene is something very important. Virus or no virus, the fact is, we've got bacteria and harmful stuff all the time that's we're coming into contact with, and therefore we should be regularly washing our hands, even after this pandemic, if it is ever going to be over, because with all the other viruses, coronaviruses that we've had, MERS and SARS, although we're going on to a different topic now.
Okay, mashallah. I think we can always. I think we keep ourselves updated. I think the last update, I think the government will be sending 2,000. I think 2 million letters to 2 million people who have health condition in UK regarding this this tiering system with the 1 and 2 and 3, depending which location you live in. Inshallah, we will keep you updated regarding that. Inshallah, maybe next week. Inshallah. I want to move. I think finally to worldwide.
I think it's. I think no more than 8 minutes. It's coming to just gone past 10 to. Should we finish for 11 o'clock?
All right, inshallah, we should be finishing. Therefore, the worldwide, there was an issue. I think, of course, I think in Europe about the Brexit, and there is no deal. I think that is carrying on as well on the European level as well. The pandemic is getting very bad, I think, in Europe as well. And there have been like a second wave as well. We know that as well. The issue of the Armenia and Azerbaijan, you know about this issue.
We discussed that last time, yes.
Yes, and of course, all the conflicts, because when international players comes in, it gets worse. And that's what happened, interference, like in other places in the Muslim world as well. And of course, I'll
tell you what I found most interesting was Mr. Macron saying that, referring to French Muslims as separatists. That was interesting and shocking. Automatically, I mean, these are no longer French citizens. You start referring to them as separatists. For God's sake, these are French citizens. How can you just? Some of them may be complaining about racism or lack of equality or whatever, and you are referring to them as separatists. This is desperation on the part of Macron, and of course you need to take that particular statement with the previous statement he made, that Islam is now the problem, not Islamic, extremism or this, that, the other. No, Islam is the issue. So him saying essentially that we want a French version of Islam, as of course the British have said we want a British Islam, and the Americans have said we want an American version of Islam. So what they really mean is, call yourself what you like, but adopt secular liberal values and principles and practices. This is really what they're talking about. Don't practice your religion. Never mind about extremism now. Before they used to talk about extremism, but don't pray, don't fast, don't keep a beard, don't wear a hijab, don't wear, wear miniskirts, etc. Be like us. That is what they are openly saying now. This has been coded before, and now all they've done is remove the coding and saying, in Rome, do as the Romans do. You do what we do. Live your life the way we live our life. Have values that we have adopted. Forget your values.
And even when you are speaking about this, even we have the issue of the last hostage from Mali, Sister Miriam, she called herself, or Sophie Petronin, when she came and he came to welcome her, and she welcomed him, and she surprised him by said, "Oh, I'm not Sophie anymore. I am Miriam. I am a Muslim, and I want to go back to Mali." Do you think that he and those people in like Trump and Macron, because they are in election time and they want to appeal to the extreme right, of course, from this kind of thing for a vote number they are looking for, and therefore they are just using all kind of strategy.
Let's use the word extreme right here. Let's call a spade a spade. They are appealing to the anti-Muslim feeling within their country.
Right, the Islamophobia again, yes.
Anti-Muslim. Far right is a political ideology, and they have a lot of other issues as well. But by issuing these statements, they are appealing to the anti-Muslim feeling within their countries. Macron is on 25%. Marine Le Pen is on 25%. They are appealing to the voters who don't like Islam and are saying, and this is nothing new. Sarkozy did the same thing, and previous, Mitterrand and these others did the same thing. Whenever the elections come, as in America, they try to present themselves as very, very pro-Israel, but now also anti-Islam, because they know that's a vote winner. In France, anti-Islam has always been a vote winner, from the experience in Algeria and subsequent, after that. So on the one hand, you've got the election element, and they are losing, and so they are appealing to the baser elements of society, the anti-Muslim element. And secondly, what you just said about this Sophie, becoming Maryam, this is also a major problem now within Western societies as a whole, but France, because it's got such a large Muslim, mostly Algerian population. I think is it some figures put it at about 10% of France is now Muslim.
About 6 million, yeah.
Which is about, I think, 10%.
Yes.
Is a population about 60, 70 million in France, I think.
Yeah.
the population is 65 million. And I think France is probably not that far off. They are afraid. They're afraid that more and more people are becoming Muslim. And you see, when you change your religion, you are changing your values. A physical rewiring of the brain takes place when you convert. This has been shown in medical or scientific circles, that a physical change takes place within the brain when you convert. So because the whole value system changes. 1 minute, for example, if you're a Muslim who becomes, I don't know, Christian or an atheist, yeah? Which sadly is happening, has happened and is happening. 1 minute, you're perhaps saying, right, alcohol is haram. Next minute, you're drinking it like there's no problem at all. That is a rewiring of your thinking mechanism. 1 minute.
And you spoke about alcohol. When I did my research, the alcohol, they get about 3 billion pound tax, and they spend almost 12 billion pound on the consequence of alcohol and rehabilitation. Therefore, rehabilitation day is about almost 240 a day. And when people look for miracles, I said this is a miracle. A non-Muslim, he becomes Muslim, and you ask him, I was having an experience with somebody who became a Muslim, and he asked him, do you miss it? He said no. Totally, he gave up alcohol.
Because a physical change has occurred inside his brain. And it's almost like a traumatic experience for the brain. Now, when you see, what gives us joy is a chemical inside our brain called dopamine. And when we experience something positive, like I have finally found the truth, there will be a release of dopamine that gives you that feel-good factor. We said, Alhamdulillah, that gives you that spiritual ecstasy, that feel-good, that, yes, I've got the truth. I've finally on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. Anytime that we do something that we find enjoyable, the chemical dopamine feeds into our brain and makes us feel good. So you're going to get this, when people know the haqq, the truth, and when they convert, they have this amazing feel-good factor. And so long as they are surrounded by the right people, because remember, converts, they go from one society, one community, this shuts themselves off completely. They've been brought up with that community. And suddenly, overnight, pretty much, that community doesn't want to know them. Most of them, they reject them completely. You're a traitor, ghaddar. Yes? This is how they are seen. You've gone over to the other side. So, to the enemy side, if you like. So it is extremely important, although we're going on to a different topic of looking after converts here.
Yes.
It's extremely important that, we, the Muslim community, have a mechanism to embrace all converts, reverts who come within the deen, because they've been rejected by one sect, their own society, and so they should be embraced by us, so they don't have a negative experience of accepting Islam, but a very, very positive feeling and experience when they've accepted Islam. So that we've gone off track here.
Yes.
But the important thing is what's happening in France is very, very worrying to the laissez-faire, this hardcore, pure secularism of the French state. They cut themselves off, many years ago from the Catholic Church, and they do not want Islamic values and practices to fill that vacuum that cutting the Catholic Church off created for most people. Because remember, we humans, we need that spiritual input. We are not just a physical machine. There's a spiritual ruh side of us that needs feeding. And that feeding comes through spirituality, through prayer, through believing in Allah, and through worshiping Him, and through fasting, and all these other aspects of ibadah. They feed the soul. And so when you exclude that nourishment to your body, that spiritual nourishment, is going to leave you bankrupt spiritually and leave a void inside your heart. And that's what the West has done. They've created a void, a spiritual bankruptcy within their own populations by moving away from spiritualism towards materialism.
And that creates an imbalance.
A massive imbalance within them. And so along comes Islam and says, you don't have to be so miserable.
Yes.
You don't have to take antidepressants and Prozac and all these other antidepressants and tablets and stuff to make yourself feel good. You just need to do 2 rakahs of fard to be closer to Allah and to give you that sense of tranquility that you so desire. The whole of humanity, many, many songs have been written about how we desire to have inner peace. And by removing the spiritual element, by secularizing the society, they are depriving the society of that inner fulfillment. If we do our dawah right, they will embrace Islam, not in tens of thousands, but millions.
And because as you said, this is because spiritually, and we are made that way. Allah has made us that kind of faith is within us, is a natural instinct, and of course we will always tend to go back to that natural instinct to be a servant of the Almighty God, isn't it? Jazakallah khair for that. I think I had the other one about world, and I think you remember that there was a press release by the International Union of Muslim Scholars who answered the declaration made by the Mufti of Egypt that second and third generation Muslim European are all belonging and part of ISIS. And
it may well be true to a small extent. Maybe less than 1% may have ISIS or Islamic State or these Daesh sympathies. Maybe 1%, maybe less. I would say less than 1%. But to make this sweeping generalization that second and third generation Muslims in the West as a whole, the majority, have got these, Daesh, ISIL tendencies, is a bit of an exaggeration, to say the least. And this Sheikh, he needs to get his facts right. He basically doesn't know what he's talking about. He's probably never been to the West. He's been fed some wrong information. You know how the media always puts emphasis on sensationalism. And if one person gets involved in some shooting like this Salman Abedi with his atrocious bomb attack in the Manchester Arena, one person does it doesn't mean that 3 million other Muslims agree with that. Well, of course we don't. Maybe out of these 3 million, 10, 15, 20, maybe 50, maybe 100 may say, yeah, well done to this terrorist. But the 99.999%, they throw their lana. They curse this man for what he had done, for killing innocent men, women, and a lot of young girls and children, which is outrageous. So for this person this mufti, I don't know what his credentials are, he's clearly been given false information. He's been listening to the Western media, getting the wrong impression about Muslims generally, and has made a statement which basically has no evidence behind it.
MashaAllah. I think staying in Egypt as well, I am just seeing this petition subject is the restoration of democratic elected government and respect of a United Nations Human Rights Declaration in Egypt. I think,
and you are very behind that. Is that right?
No, I think there is a human rights group, Egypt Human Rights Group.
I read that, and my initial reaction without reading everything was,
right, yes,
it's too much.
Oh, right, okay.
You need to reduce it to maybe a couple of paragraphs at most.
I think I will take that recommendation to the Egypt Human Rights.
Yes, it's way too much. I read the first few lines and I thought, hang on, where does this finish? And it's like 3-4 pages. I thought, I just...
But because it's part of it, because they said you have to raise awareness. Not everybody knows what is going on in Egypt.
No, but you can summarize it. The problem with Muslims is that we are terrible at summarizing.
And not reading. We don't read a lot.
No, number one, we don't read a lot, so we don't know the facts most of the time.
Right. Yeah.
But secondly, if we have this much time, but we've got that much to say, we don't know how to condense it.
Yeah.
We don't know how to pick out the most important things. We think everything is important. Because we think it's important, doesn't mean that the general population out there is going to see it as important. So you got to pull out the most important points, summarize them, and then present them. So
do you think?
Summary.
Yeah, but do you think that petitions are a very good way to change, like in Kashmir's issue, in everything?
Well, I mean, as you said right at the start, I think we were talking about petition, about an hour ago, or maybe more. Look, a petition, if it's going to be presented in Parliament, if it hits 100,000, they have to at least discuss it. And then you've got to make sure that enough MPs know the facts. That's where you start sending all this extra information in.
Right. I think you are right. I think they are right about this, because this is another success story about the Uyghurs. Closed petition imposed sanctions on China over its treatment of Uyghurs Muslim. The UK government plans to introduce a Magnitsky law, a law which targets people who commit gross human rights violation. Through this law or alternative means, this petition urges the UK government to impose sanctions on China for their human rights violation on the Uyghur people. Since 2017, there have been many reports of the cultural genocide of the Uyghurs Muslim, a minority Turkish ethnic group native to Xinjiang, China. They are subject to mass detention, mass surveillance, restriction of religious and cultural identities, as well as other gross human rights abuse or crimes against humanity. Over a million Uyghurs.
And today, to add to those crimes, it was reported on the BBC that 900,000 Muslim children have been taken away from Muslim families to be brainwashed in boarding schools.
Are you right? Over a million Uyghurs, that's what you said. This is what you said. Over a million Uyghurs have been forced into re-education camps in
No,
front
those
of the,
are the adults.
yes,
Those
yes,
are the adults.
these
Their
are children,
children
yes,
have been taken to boarding schools to become Han Chinese communists.
yes, 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 I know that boy called Abdul Aziz. I know about him. In front of the United Nations in October 2019, pressure was placed on China regarding the treatment of Uyghurs during a joint statement from 23 countries. Unfortunately, the Muslim countries were on the opposite camp. Despite this statement, a growing public awareness, nothing substantial or concrete has been done to resolve the crisis and help the Uyghurs people. Alhamdulillah, it reached 146,344 signatures, and therefore the government responded. We have a grave concern about the gross human rights abuse being perpetrated on Xinjiang, but it's not appropriate to speculate about the future sanction, as this may reduce their impact. And of course, they
But
want
of
to
course,
put.
and remember, you see, the Chinese government, the communist Chinese government, has launched a war on every religion. They want Chinese communism to be the god of every Chinese person in China.
Therefore, that's their religion, what we call.
So anyone of any religion, especially Islam, also now Christianity, apparently from what I was reading,
And Buddhists as well, Timor, yeah.
the word Jesus Christ has been removed, has been banned from books in China.
Yes, I heard that. Yeah.
Right. So it's, you know, the way, I'm going to think aloud here. This is, you know, my personal view, and, you know, you can completely ignore it if you wish. But I personally feel that the way things are going, you know, that a bit of Islamic eschatology, which says that towards the end of time, Muslim and Christian armies will fight a common enemy. I personally believe the way things are going, it could be that now with America about to go downhill and no longer an international superpower, possibly in the next 5 to 10 years, because I think the way America's going, there'll be a civil war or something, and it's going to break up into individual states. That's my personal prediction, looking at the situation. If America goes down, is no longer a superpower, China is naturally going to fill that spot. And as it fills that spot, it will launch a war on religion everywhere. Anyone who believes in God, Muslim or Christian or whoever. And this is where I think the Muslim world and the Christian world are going to unite their forces to fight the forced expansion of atheist communism by China. I think this is where we're going in the next 5 to 10 years.
Right, okay, inshallah, that's prediction is going there. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all. Of course, we close our Jazakumullahu khair. I thank Brother Asad Zaman for his time and for his input in those issues, inshallah. Of course, we had a lot of issues, other things, but of course, the time is always our enemy. We have to keep it to point as well. And inshallah, we will hope, inshallah, to meet you again next week, inshallah, on this A2Z show. And of course, if you have any comments or suggestion or questions, inshallah, always put them on the comments on our on the YouTube as well, which is available, and of course on the radio as well. We put it, inshallah, on this www.radio.hajj.online, and inshallah we will hope you enjoyed listening to this one. With that, we say subhanakallah wa bihamdik, nashhadu astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Bismillah, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wal 'asr, innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. وجزاكم الله خيرا. May Allah reward you all. And until I see you then, look after yourself.